In today's video, I'm going to be covering what I want from Ghost Recon Wildlands 2. This video is going to be unprofessional because I'm just going to be talking about things I want from a game that we don't even know anything about yet. As far as where the game takes place and all of that, I don't know, I'm kind of leaving that up in the air, but there are some features I'd like to see implemented into the next game, so let's talk about it. First things first, I want the game to remain the same formula-wise to Ghost Recon Wildlands. Having an open world where your friends can join in and help you on different side missions, main story missions, or just causing havoc against Unidad and the cartel, completely untethered to the host is just really fun. One of the things I hate about the Far Cry games multiplayers is that they limit you to 2 people and it tethers you to the host, meaning one person can't go too far off from the host at any given time. It kind of breaks immersion, and it's kind of cool that in Wildlands you have this entire huge map, and it's not the most interesting open world, but you have all of it to explore wherever you want, however you want. It'll never tether you, it'll never say teleporting you to your teammate because you're too far away. That makes the game feel less strict and like more of a sandbox, and I'm very okay with that, and I hope that the next game just pursues what Wildlands 1 did and doesn't try to hurt the formula, but instead just try to improve all of the individual aspects of what Wildlands had. One improvement I would like to see is 6-player co-op instead of 4-player co-op. It's cool that I can hop in and play with 3 of my friends, but I would love to hop in and play with 5 of them. I think a lot of bases in Wildlands, in terms of like Unidad bases and cartel bases, that would cater to more than just 4 people being in the server, and also on harder difficulties like expert tier mode, like it's very easy to die and get completely wiped if you're just playing with 2 friends or 3 friends. I think a 6-player co-op experience would be really good, especially if the world is the same size as Wildlands 1. Maybe the engine couldn't handle it, but I really don't see why not. It would really just be 2 more players. But that's kind of a small thing. If it doesn't happen, I wouldn't be surprised. But the next thing I really want is better stealth mechanics. In Ghost Recon Wildlands, the AI will detect you seemingly randomly, sometimes not, sometimes will. You'll get spotted when you didn't think you should have, and you won't get spotted when you think you should have. It's very inconsistent. And one of my least favorite things about Wildlands is that you could lay in a pitch black corner in a pitch black outfit at night during a rainstorm, and if a guard gets like 10 feet from you, they will start to spot you, especially on harder difficulties. I think there should be a light and camo meter similar to the Metal Gear and Splinter Cell games, where if you're using the right type of camo, green in the jungle, white in the snow, stuff like that, if you're using black at night, for instance, if you're doing that, you get a bigger percentage in camouflage, meaning you're harder to see and it's going to take longer for you to be spotted. And then you also should have a light index. If you're in a dark corner, you've shot at a light in a room and it's pitch black, I don't think enemies should be able to see you. Basically, if you were in the jungle and you were wearing all white, you would have 0% camouflage. And maybe if you proned behind a tree, it would say you had about 10% camouflage. If you switch to a green outfit, then it's 60%. If you get in the shade or at night, then it's like 70-80% completely camouflaged. I feel like this would be pretty easy to implement, and the way it would work is pretty simple. Enemies have a harder time seeing you when you are more camouflaged. Ghost Recon Wildlands seems to really cater towards not being spotted, and yet doesn't really have a lot of mechanics to facilitate that type of gameplay. Just staying far away or behind cover doesn't really feel like a stealth game, because in stealth games you should be able to camouflage yourself with a ghillie suit, or again with green or black camo depending on the time of day or whatever. Rain and thunderstorm should mask the sound of your footsteps, and if I go into a room and shoot at a light bulb and make the room pitch black at night, I feel like I should be a lot harder to see. It's very obvious on harder difficulties that you just get spotted seemingly at random, so moving on, I think they should limit on-the-fly weapon selection. I think you should have to pick a select amount of guns, like 5 guns that you can cycle through, and then you have to go to loadout boxes to change that. This is similar to how Ghost Mode works in Ghost Recon Wildlands, where you don't get to just switch your guns willy-nilly all the time. But I feel like outside of Ghost Mode in Wildlands 2, on-the-fly customization and all that variety at your fingertips is actually kind of a fun gameplay mechanic, and it shouldn't be completely removed. But having like every DMR and sniper rifle, LMG, shotgun, assault rifle, and SMG at your fingertips to grab and customize in the middle of any situation is just a bit silly. They could make it so you can only customize your gun at a weapon box, or you can only grab a new gun at a weapon box, but you can customize them all the time. That makes more sense, because it makes sense like to have 2 guns on your backpack and then a backpack full of attachments, compared to having like 100 guns in your backpack and all of the attachments and the 2 guns on the outside of the backpack. It's a little silly. Also, Really tiny note here, dual wielding would also be really cool. I want to be able to have 2 pistols instead of 1. Please make it happen, Ubisoft. The next one's kind of vague because I'm not a developer, but I want more dynamic AI. I feel like all of the villagers and townspeople in Wildlands are completely blank slates, and I'd like them to be a little bit more dynamic. Talking to you, engaging with you, yelling at you. It would be cool to watch cartel guards outside of a base like have a conversation, or see one of them like arguing with someone else. Sometimes you can see a little bit of this in the game, like you'll see a cartel guy taking a piss behind a building, you'll see one of them like leaning back in a chair trying to sleep. Sometimes one of them will be like visibly drunk and they'll be like singing. But for the most part they're very stagnant, and when combat starts they don't really do anything other than try to kill you. And it'd be kind of cool that if like let's say you downed an enemy, like the other enemies would go up to them and try to like pull them into cover and try to resuscitate their friends. It'd be cool if like the last enemy out of a group would maybe try to run away and go get help. Just some random dynamic AI elements so that it doesn't just feel like I'm basically in a shooting gallery and they're the targets. I think it would also be cool that if you shot them in the leg, they would limp, shot them in both legs, they'd fall down, shoot them in the head, they're of course dead, shoot them in the arm or the hand, they drop their gun. The game really isn't a full-fledged like RPG like Division, it's not like an RPG MMO light type of deal, so it could be a lot more realistic with the enemies and how they react to you and damage. And a big one, I want the AI to miss on harder difficulty settings, because if you play on expert tier mode, you'll know that as soon as enemies know where you are, they just immediately light you up. They do not miss, they do not falter, they do not delay, and at just about any range, as long as you're in range where their bullets can reach you, they will, and they'll just immediately melt you off the fucking face of the planet. Even while in moving cars or while running, they'll just shoot you and just win. I think having them miss, or having some sort of gauge on the enemies where if you've been shooting at them, their psych meter goes down or something along those lines, where they get scared, kind of like the fear meter in the Arkham games, and if you get them scared enough, then they're shaky and their aim goes everywhere. If you're not keeping them scared, then they can pinpoint you, but I think as soon as you start shooting at them, they should be flinching, running for cover, and they should be much less accurate because they should have the shit scared out of them. And they could have a system where maybe the lieutenants don't really get that scared, but the grunts, the normal like everyday infantry, they do. This next thing is about exploration. I want them to hide some guns off the map, like not on like the mini-map, the map that you can pull out and look at. I want them to hide like interesting guns like World War II era weapons or something along those lines, maybe even some like sci-fi guns. I think it'd be cool if you did like a quest for somebody and they gave it to you, or if you got like a hint like, oh, there's a box behind a waterfall near the mountain where the train runs, or something like that. Not really a hint, but kind of like a description of an area you have to go look for. Or just word of mouth, where you talk to NPCs and they'll say, hey, I saw the cartel loading these weird boxes into this cave just north of here. That might be a good place to find a gun. And then of course you can also do the thing where you find intel on where weapons are, and then it marks those weapons on your map. But I think it'd be cool to hide some more interesting weapons off the map where you have to kind of work for it. I would love to like do a quest for somebody and then they give me their old M1 Garand or something. The next thing I would like to see is a stamina bar and a health bar, camping, and eating. Here's how I would make that work. If you eat a full meal at a campsite, you have an entire in-game day of stamina. It won't go down unless you're constantly getting shot, because I think stamina should be depleted to heal you. After the in-game day, your stamina bar will start to go down, and you can supplement your diet by eating little things like apples or granola bars, which bump up your stamina bar a little bit, but doesn't lock it for an entire in-game day. It would be fun to like go through the towns and maybe buy some food, or gather food in the woods, or hunt things, and then take that meat and eat it at a campsite in the form of a meal, and then have full stamina for the rest of that day unless you keep getting shot. Or just going by an apple stand in one of the towns, grabbing some apples, and then you just, nom on some apples to keep your stamina up throughout that day because you don't have time to camp, or maybe you just don't want to. I'm kind of thinking Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater kind of stuff, Red Dead Redemption, Final Fantasy type of things here, where you have like campsites, you eat to regain your stamina, stamina helps you regain your health. I think that would make it more of like a survival game, because it's kind of weird that it's called Wildlands, but not a lot of it is very wild. And that's the next thing. Animals. There's no animals in Wildlands that you really can interact with other than just shooting like some alpacas or cows. I think it'd be cool if you could hunt and be hunted by certain animals. I think crocodiles should pose a threat. I think wild boars should, similar to the Far Cry series. So yeah, animals, camping, eating, stamina. I love that idea. It'd make the game feel a lot less I'm just in this world as a super soldier that can just die, come back to life, and shoot people. Some survival aspects like that, like, oh, I need stamina, I'm gonna go into this town and go buy some pears or something. Like, I like that idea a lot. It wouldn't be micromanagey like Red Dead Redemption 2, it wouldn't stop the game like Final Fantasy 15, but it would just add an extra layer to gameplay. A big one is a first-person option. That's a big one. I've wanted that throughout all of Wildlands' life cycle, because close quarters, like in-room combat, like you enter a building, it's really frustrating to fight in third person in close quarters in Ghost Recon Wildlands, at least for me. I think you should be able to go into first person whenever you want with a press of a button or a change of the settings menu. I'm not a developer, but I don't think it would be that hard, and I think it would be well worth it, because close quarters engagements would be more fun, it would bring in people that don't like third person shooters, and of course the cover system would be in third person because first person cover systems don't really work that well in my opinion. So yeah, a nice coherent first person option would be great. A small thing to go along with that, I want better animations. If there's one thing that they do that's really small in the next Wildlands game, I just want better animations. I don't know if you've tried to use any of the hybrid sites in Ghost Recon Wildlands, but like when you swap between the different hybrid sites, it's all janky and messy. When you switch shoulders, for instance, when you switch shoulders in third person, you are actually switching which hand is holding the gun, and it just looks really janky and very strange. It just doesn't quite look right, and I feel like the best thing they could do for the next Wildlands game is to get rid of all of the janky kind of rushed animations and put some real time into doing some quality animations. Also, I want to be able to roll side to side, like do like a tumble roll onto like the left or right, like in Metal Gear Solid 5. A big one that I want is more traversal options. I love all of these ideas that I'm throwing out here, actually. I don't care if you guys do or not at this point. More traversal options, Jesus, would be a lot of fun. Hang gliders, wingsuits, grappling hooks, and zip lines would be the best addition to a Wildlands game. I would love at least some rock climbing equipment so I can climb the sides of mountains. It wouldn't have to be like advanced movement where it would just start like to negate everything. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, that mountain doesn't matter, that wall doesn't matter because you can just climb over it or fly over it with this. It would be kind of loud to throw a grappling hook up on top of something. Climbing the side of a rock would take a lot of time, but at least you could do it. You would have to go all the way around. Zip lining from one elevated point to the next, and then having something that's not really a parachute, but something that's more like a wingsuit that you can control more and go faster. I really like the wingsuit in Far Cry 5, and I've wanted it in every game since. Actually, really, the first time I really fell in love with a wingsuit was the Black Ops 2 campaign mission. A lot of you guys will know what I'm talking about. And then the last one here is kind of small, but it's interactable environments. I wish I could shoot a power line, and then the line would like come down and like spin around and like spit raw electricity out, and it could potentially electrocute people and animals. I think that'd be kind of interesting. After playing the Metal Gear games, I just really loved how interactable things were, like shooting a hornet's nest and then the hornets would like come down and swarm on the enemies and then they'd run away. Shooting the ropes out from bridges so the bridge like teeters down. Destroying ammo supply points so that enemies have less ammunition. Opening and closing doors and all that kind of stuff. I think that'd be really cool. The next Wildlands game should aim to be more interactable and more dynamic, and honestly just more alive in general. So those are my opinions. 6-player co-op, better stealth, limit on-the-fly weapon selection, more dynamic AI, hide some of the weapons off the map, camping and eating, animals, first-person options, better animations, more traversal options, and interactable environments. I really like Wildlands, but I feel like it was kind of half aborted, and it didn't have a lot of its features fleshed out, so hopefully the second game can be the open-world sandbox stealth co-op action game of the next generation, or of this generation, that we'll just be playing for years to come. Thanks for listening to me blab about things I'd like to see added into the next Wildlands game, and I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.